Well, hello again, everybody. This is just kind of a random sit down and talk about books that I've recently read. I did a previous recent readings recent readings video, and I've only downed a couple more books since then, but some of the books that I took care of were part of a trilogy of books, so I kind of wanted to talk about that. I'm pretty sure in that last video I had showed where I had been reading The Wastelands, book number 3 in the Dark Tower series. So I finished that one off. That was a really good one. Probably my favorite book so far in the series. And of course, now that I've finished off this other trilogy of books, because I was waiting for this one to come in the mail, this is Wizard of Glass. That's book number 4 in the Dark Tower series. Like I said, I'm just a little ways into it. But while I was waiting for this one to come in the mail, and I need to probably pick up the next couple of books all at once so that I can just keep on reading unimpeded. But in the meantime, I sat down and read a trilogy of books. They're from the Star Trek Next Generation line of novels. And I think I had 1 or 2 of these books, and for some reason didn't have the third. Maybe I had the third book at some point and I lost it, left it behind when I moved from Montana or something like that. But I was able to get this one for pretty cheap, and so I sat down to read this book. I think I may have made it pretty clear in the previous reading video that I really enjoy Q and books based on Q. It's one of my favorite characters from Star Trek Next Generation. So this is a Q-themed trilogy of books. The series is called the Q Continuum, and these are the 3 books. This is book 1 of 3, which was called Q Space. Book 2 of 3, which was called Q Zone. And then the third and final book was called Q Strike, and even has Mr. Q on the cover there. Now, I've read a handful of Q books in the past, and there was one, at least, and I don't remember off the top of my head which one it was, but there was one where, if I remember right, Picard ends up in the Q Continuum himself, or it's told from the perspective of Q in the Q Continuum, but I could have swore characters from the Enterprise ended up in the Q Continuum alongside of Q himself. And it had a very interesting interaction there. I think it may have even dealt with Q's family. I don't recall now. I need to track that book down. I need to find out if it was in the books from the last video that I did, or if it was from way back in the past. But anyway, this particular series here, by the way, these are books 47, 48, and 49 in the Next Generation set of books, in case anybody out there would care. In this particular one, they actually take on a story that, in my opinion, as epic as it was probably not meant to be in the canon, because it's just so overwhelming. Like, the implications of everything that happened in this book. It's the kind of thing where somebody says, hey, why don't you just go write a book about Q, and you can just have complete license to, determine whatever you want to in the Q story. And then whoever was told that was like, okay, sure, why not? I'll just go frickin' crazy. And in the course of these books, he determines, why the Milky Way galaxy is, well, I guess it's not necessarily, that part's not true, but it just seemed to really suggest that Q was responsible for so many things. It was kind of like Forrest Gump on a galactic scale. One of those being that because of the conflict between Q and the entities in this series that provides the antagonist, Q was basically responsible for the creation of Earth. Well, actually, was responsible for the Ice Age on Earth. Like the theory that a meteorite struck the Earth and caused the Ice Age and killed out all the beasts and creatures that lived on Earth thousands of years ago. Which was just, like I said, it was just kind of funny. It felt like that Forrest Gump type moment from the Forrest Gump movies where he always just seemed to be someplace and even cause these historical things to happen. And I guess another thing that felt like taking advantage of the creative license was the relationship that Q and Picard have. Like Q, I don't want to spoil too much of it, so that if somebody wants to read these books, despite the fact that these are all copyright roughly, I think, from around 1998, so they're all 15 years plus. But Q has to warn the Enterprise and Starfleet and everything not to mess with this galactic barrier that surrounds the Milky Way, not to try to punch through it with this scientist's experiment that should be able to get them through, because it's been erected there to hold back someone from Q's past, an evil entity who's just as omnipotent as Q, if not more so, and with his evil intentions, this would spell doom for the galaxy and everyone in it. But Q can't just come out and say that to Captain Picard and the rest of the crew. He has to take Picard on some epic journey into the past to show him how this all came to be, and had to share with Picard mistakes from Q's own past, his own youth. And so there were moments when Picard actually sympathized, at least with the younger Q. So it would have been something epic to see in an episode, like a 2-part episode, or maybe even a full-length feature movie. But at the same time, I just think it's so heavy for the canon that I don't think it could ever be accepted as so. I don't know, though. Maybe Roddenberry, Berman, maybe the actors, the writers, and all them would have loved to have accepted something like that into the mythology of Next Generation. But the point of it all is, as long as you go into it saying these are just books and it's a wonderful epic journey and quite the adventure, you'll love it. I felt inclined to lean towards, like, there's no way this could ever happen. This is just letting the Q thing get too far out of hand. But still, it's a really great series of books. Once again, Q Continuum, Q Space, Q Zone, Q Strike, they're all they were read by me. They were authored by Greg Cox, and I really, really enjoyed them. I hope to read some more Next Generation Trek books soon, but now my focus needs to go back to Stephen King's Dark Tower series, reading into this one. I do believe that this one has a substantial chunk of the story that takes place in the past. So while it's involved right now in the story that I finished up in the Wastelands, it's continued here. But from what I've read and what I've heard, this is going to go back into Roland's past. I'm looking forward to it, though. I'm really looking forward to reading this. This is a series that started in the 80s, and I've known about it for many years. But I guess even 10 years ago, I knew that it wasn't a complete series. And now it's up to like 7 or 8 books, and there's apparently going to be more work in this series. So who knows? But I look forward to reading up as much as I can now, pumping these books out in a row instead of having waited 20 or 30 years to pick up a book every handful of years in this series. Stephen King, like I said, still remains my favorite author. And I need to look through my books and find out if I still have The Stand. That's my favorite book of his. I could have swore I owned a copy of it. I might have talked about this last time, but I'm not 100% sure that it's still in my collection. And it kind of bums me out, because I'd like to be able to read that one again and watch the miniseries that was based on it again. Anyway, now I'm just blathering on about whatnot, so thanks for watching. I'll probably do one of these recent readings videos every 4 or 5 books that I put down, unless I get into a slow spell of non-reading. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. Check out these books if they sound good to you. Leave me some suggestions if you'd like. One of these days I'll probably sit down and do a video highlighting more of the authors out there that I really, really enjoy. beyond Stephen King and the Star Trek stuff and whatnot. So, anyway, guys, thanks for watching. See you next time.